All right, the disaster yesterday, the disaster of this season, in my opinion, the disaster for a while is clear. And I guess, we've got to talk about that. And I plan on doing that. But what I want to do is cover the game yesterday in a macro view, because it's going to continue to show something I've been saying for a while. I'm going to take all the offensive and defensive production for the season of the Miami Dolphins and Cardinals and show that, and then show what happened yesterday and add that to how the defense played us. And it's going to tell something very, very clear. There's a lot of reasons why we lost. We lost last week because of a sloppy game. This week it wasn't so sloppy. We still lost. So, some people want to say it's all Tua. You could blame some of him. You want to say all McDaniel, you could blame him. You want to say the offensive line, we'll blame them. But clearly there is many, many factors, and where the ratio is, that's the discussion I'm going to get into later. But I want you see this graphic right here. This is what I want to kind of focus on. And then I'm going to go use another graphic, and you're going to see something abundantly clear. And it's going to help clarify the loss and maybe some of the blame that should be handed out. So let's take a look at this image here. First downs. Miami had 22. They had 22. 15 passing on each side. And look, despite the success of our run game, the first downs were very, very comparable. Penalties, one from us to them, so that's how you get the 22. Third down efficiency, 7 for 13 for them, just slightly over 50%. Ours was much higher, 11 for 15. But still, the total plays were 62 and 64. Yards, relatively the same, them a little bit more than us. They had one more drive. They had 6.3 yards per play, us 5.9, so a half yard more for them. But time of possession was roughly the same. So despite all our rush success, we weren't able to dominate time of possession and gas them out and get more overall plays, even with our 11 for 15. Well, you could say this, you could say that, or whatever. We'll get into that, but I'm going to show you something that's going to be very, very clear. So here's a little thing I put together, a bunch of a soup of stats for analytics. So AZ Murray faced 59% blitz rate. Now, that generates pressure, supposedly, but what it does is weaken the secondary as well, because you're taking guys out of coverage and then throwing them into the blitz. The pressure rate was 24%, so we were bringing 60, and it was almost 1/3. The pressure rate, that's not good. It's supposed to be parallel. You're supposed to get a certain blitz rate and a certain pressure rate and be equal. That's at least what you want, or close to it. This is way off. So they had 2.65 seconds time to throw. Some of that's Murray. Some of it's the offensive line. But their pass rush mitigation, which means screens and play actions, was only 27%. Not a lot. Very low for this league, and very low compared to what we did. I'll show you in a second. Their average depth of target was 9.9 yards. Very high. When they're blitzing, they got to play man. And if the blitzes aren't hitting home, whether because the offensive line or Murray, it allows the depth at that 2.65 seconds for receivers to get deep and then the quarterback to hit them. Now, conversely, Miami faced 40% blitz rate, which is, we averaged 13.7, so, it's 3 times as much. And I had done a podcast showing that the highest points per game teams had high blitz rates. And as we put points on. Now, on the downside, they only got 15% pressure rate. And that is less than 3 times. It's almost 3 times, it'd be 45%. So that's not a great ratio. Again, you look at us, it's almost the same, just about. It would be 72 to 59. We got a little bit better pressure rate by comparison. So while you're looking at that and say, well, we did get a little better pressure rate, it's really not the same, because 59% of the time we exposed our secondary, and Murray had 60% just about opportunities to attack an exposed secondary by stripping guys out of that secondary to blitz. And then for them, it was only 40%. And so while the pressure rate was a little bit better for them, only 40%, 4 out of 10 times did we really get the opportunity to attack weakened secondaries of the Cardinals. And then even when we did, they were playing so high over the top with those 3 safeties or 3 cover guys, it limited the opportunities. So ultimately, it was a far more conducive environment for Murray because of this in comparison compared to Tua. Now, time to throw is 2.14 compared to that 2.65, and that is another reason why you're not getting depth of target. But we used to run that and still get the depth of target. But when I show you how the defenses looked, you can understand why they couldn't get it. Short talk, and I'll show you later, 3 safety high. They played high leverage, so they forced us to throw short. But when you add a 57.5% pass rush mitigation, which is tremendous, it strips guys going out into routes. And then when you realize they only 40% of the time weakened their secondary by bringing the blitz, but then they also play the high leverage, we pulled so many guys out. We had 11 guys, extra blockers on top of this, them 13. So that's a lot of guys not in routes against a defense that is taxing itself, but it's being balanced out by all the guys we're keeping in and the short pass game that we're running, which was an average depth rate of 5.9. But they said, we're taking away the top. I'll show you. They played over leverage, and that also limited the run game. We only had one huge run, a few chunks and nice gashes, but only one chunk. But this was all designed to keep everything in front and make us march down the field and waited for us to make a mistake. And you could see a couple times we got field goals instead of touchdowns, and we weren't able to punish them so much that it changed their look. But I'll get into that in a second. So Arizona on the season averages 196 on offense, 142 in the run game. It was 196 in the pass game, 142 in the run game. The defense allows 235 in the pass game, 141 in the run game. Our offense averages 186 in the pass game. Huntley lowered that a little bit. 134 in the run game. Our defense allows 176 in the pass game and 123 in the run game. But when you look at the offense production on the day, Arizona had 307 yards passing, 113 more than their total. But they had minus 60 in the run game with 82 on the day. We averaged 234, which was 58 more than normal. And our run game, despite all the success, only averaged 9 more than they normally would give up. And so we really didn't destroy them. Like if we had gotten to 200, it would have been different. But we didn't. The pass game, it was about the same as what they did on the season, but they had an incredibly successful day in the pass game, and that was a big difference despite the lowered running attack. And there's a reason, because the rush yards are very important. But the amount of runs, 26 for them, 26 for us, that keeps the ball, keeps defenses honest, and it keeps the clock moving. And so they, despite the lowered rush yards, although in the end of the game they were able to get it off, they kept the balance, kept the clock moving, kept their defense fresh. And despite how well we did in the run game, they were keeping balance with the run game. But when you look at how they played us and how we played them, you can see that it was a more conducive environment for Murray and less conducive environment for Tua. Their run game pinned us to the line of scrimmage and kept us blitzing to stop the run and to get after the quarterback. But no matter how much we ran, they still played high in the box. They would blitz, but the 3 high is what they played all day and with very little differences. So you look on the day, no matter what the down was practically, you can see they looked like this. Very thin up front, playing that middle of the high leverage in the box, and then playing way over the top. But when you look at us, in order to get the 60% blitz rate and to focus on Connor and to try to hem in Murray, we were pressed against the line of scrimmage. We left things thin and played more man. And they beat us on man. Some of it was because of the offensive line. Some of it was because of Murray. But Ramsey was beat. He's their guy. He was beat on a long crosser. Our second-round pick, Cam Smith, was beat. Other guys were beat because the blitz was coming heavy, thinning that secondary. They weren't keeping all these guys in. They were putting as many guys in the routes as they can, which gave options for Murray on the move. Clearly, the defense has culpability. You saw them give up all those big plays, 21 points in the second half. But you've got to understand, they were facing the much better unit than the offense. We got blitzed more than we usually have, but we brought more pass rush mitigation and had to throw shorter because they played way over the top. Sort of like the Patriots did last year in the first matchup when they were shorthanded and we couldn't beat them. We didn't smash them until that big run at the end. And so the scheme matchup really held Tua down. Tua made mistakes. McDaniel made mistakes. But we weren't able to hurt them enough to change them. And so it shows that offensively, we're not able to do enough. And some of it starts with the tight end blocking. Some of it has to do with the offensive line blocking. Some of it has to do with receivers who can't run block. Some of it has to do with receivers who aren't big, although they're fast. Some of it has to do a little bit with Tua and McDaniel drawing up these plays. But you don't keep 57% pass rush mitigation unless you don't trust your blocking. You don't throw 2.14 unless you don't trust your blocking. And so whatever you want to say, either McDaniel was stupid and kept all these guys in for no reason, or he kept them in for a reason. But this is something that we've seen for a while. We got a higher blitz rate, but we even raised higher the pass rush mitigation and threw even shorter and still weren't able to beat them out. And it's not a good defense. Now, to Weaver's favor, their offense is challenging. And so he had the harder job. He was shorthanded without Sealer, without Kohu. And so you have to keep that in the background. But McDaniel maybe didn't do the best job in the second half. But this blocking unit, whether it's real or fantasy, gets a lot of attention from McDaniel. And it strips away the opportunity to hurt teams because we're keeping guys out of routes. So you can take it for what you want. I'm not blaming it all on the offensive line. I'm not giving McDaniel a freebie. I'm not saying Tua is the greatest thing in the world. I probably am saying Greer sucks and he's kind of put all this thing together and it's not good enough. We're not able to run past balance. We're designed for fun ball. We're designed to stop fun ball on defense, and the league has moved to pass balance, which demands a certain style and certain build, and we don't got it. And it makes it less conducive for us to be successful. Hope this made sense. I think it does. Anyway, I'll get back to some more stuff tomorrow. Curtis saying, be well, go Fins. Curtis app. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.